The day you decide you don't want to be family, you got to have an asset that you can sell as you move on. What we buy you out. You know, I mean, I'm just being realistic here, you guys.
I really just like me tons better not living with them. I loved the cul-de-sac. I felt like in the cul-de-sac, I was master over my own world. I was a mom. I was confident in being a mom. I want to do whatever I want in my home.
Hey besties, I got Christine Brown's book. Christine Brown Woolley, her book, Sister Wives, A Memoir of Faith, Family, and Finding Freedom. And my husband drove to Barnes & Noble because that's where it's on the shelves. Apparently, they had just put it out on the shelves when my husband had got there. And the book is about 295 pages. It's an incredibly fast read. And for Sister Wives fans who have and watched the show, some of this won't come as a surprise for you, but a lot of what she does in this book is goes through the show and talks more about what was going on behind the cameras when something was filmed. And you start to learn more about how the filming process works, how things were set up, and really she digs into a lot of the betrayals that a lot of us witnessed on the show, but no one was saying. And she acknowledges aspects that so many of us had speculated on for years, and she confirms them, or she even adds more information that we didn't know. And a lot of it comes down to the lack of intimacy in her marriage with Kody, which she describes in incredible detail, and really that betrayal because Kody married her and he wasn't attracted to her. And Christine didn't find this out until he decided to write a book with her after the show came out and humiliate her. And their marriage was not always great. And her relationship with her sister wives, not good. In fact, by the time the show started, she and Mary weren't even friends. And her relationship with Janelle, while Janelle has discussed about how they had this very symbiotic relationship, and while Christine doesn't disagree, she calls Janelle controlling and says that she found it often that Janelle exploited her and would start a project and expect Christine to help her, which she felt people in the family took advantage of her. She loves Janelle, but she said she didn't stand up for herself enough in the early years. And she sort of was steamrolled and bulldozed by everyone around her. And if you're looking for her to completely denounce polygamy and to really denounce polygamy as a whole and like say it needs to be illegal, that's not going to happen. It's pretty evident in this book, you guys, that she has quite a bit to go in terms of her deconstruction. But it's very refreshing to see her perspective evolve and change as she starts to tell the story and she starts to wake up and realize that she is being manipulated and being lied to. And she discusses aspects of her church that they intentionally kept off the show, including when she herself found out about the allegations of child SA that was occurring in her own church, and that being a very big wake-up call for her to walk away from polygamy. And due to what she learned about the leaders of her church that were supposed to be men of God, prophets of God, close to God, speaking for God, and they were harming children, this was why in her book, and this is why she says when she got a divorce from Kody and when she left him, she didn't feel a need to go to leaders that were harming children and that were harming women and that were being abusive. They had no authority over her, and she wasn't going to seek their permission to leave Kody because they couldn't even keep their own house clean. She just found them to be hypocrites. And so she didn't need their permission. It's really nice to hear her acknowledge that because it was something that was happening behind the scenes, but they weren't saying, but she was keenly aware of what it was happening, and it was a reason why she left her church. In fact, she speaks about how the church changed when members of the church were actually sued for embezzling from an actor. She writes, also, according to our church, God said men are in charge. Seriously, what kind of God would come up with that plan? I started to question members of our leadership. I didn't find them honorable, and on a personal level, I didn't care for them. The actor Virginia Hill accused them of stealing more than $1 million from her. A civil court ruled in her favor, as well as holding that church leaders embezzled tithing money. The church chose replacement leaders who were so strict that our children hated them. They wanted Kody to cut his hair. They said that he couldn't pass the sacrament, bless, and pass ceremonial bread if he didn't, because Jesus had a crew cut. Then we found out we weren't supposed to wear earrings. The church teachings became more about previous prophets, previous church leaders, than about our scriptural doctrine. I told him I didn't believe our articles of faith were the words of God. I think one of the aspects about the show that has truly frustrated me is the lack of transparency they had when they discussed what was going on within their own church. Now, she describes the reasons why they didn't specifically talk about the church, and a lot of it had to do with the church not wanting to be involved in the show, getting in trouble with church leaders. And a lot of it, too, was just that they didn't want to cause harm to their family members that were still inside the church or betray them. But she does acknowledge something that they've never discussed on the show. And this was right after they started filming Sister Wives. The church needed to control its message, and the Brown family was a wild card, and no one knew how the public would receive us. The church was dealing with a public relations disaster, one that I had no desire to be associated with. At about the same time we started filming, news broke of accusations that members of my church had molested children. Exactly what I'd always decried about the FLDS. That shook me. Even the thought of something like that happening to one of our kids could bring me to tears. And this was the group that provided the morality rules for how we should behave. I thought back to Mom and how she always said we should judge church leaders individually rather than assume they are righteous or good. As the church admonished us for going public, they continued to live in secrecy, and nothing could convince me that being afraid of the outside world justified a system where true evil could exist. It's like a petri dish. Bacteria grow and grow because nothing is coming from outside to stop it. So after years where they're publicly defending this and saying, we're not like that, our church isn't like that, privately, they knew that their church was like that. And I recognized they were in an precarious situation, and they had an agenda that they needed to portray to the mainstream media. But it also, to me, highlights the fraud that was happening. And I don't really put this on the women, because if you read the book, you're going to see just how incredibly naive Christine is. So naive that she claims that because she used oxycodone for 2 weeks, that she was addicted to it, and that she didn't even get through a full prescription because she had knee surgery. So she had knee surgery and she used her oxy for the pain, but then as she's using it for the pain, she's also using it because it makes her feel better. And then after 2 weeks, she realizes she's addicted to it, and so then she needs to get off of it. Not quite the same as a full-on fledgling addiction, but she didn't like that it made her feel like she needed it. But it's the naivety of her, because in her culture, any sort of substance is a sin, and using substances to escape is a sin. And so I think that ingrained in her that, even using it for 2 weeks and feeling like I wanted to use it was enough, but she didn't even finish her bottle that she had prescribed. So I don't know, she's very naive. A lot of what the book really does is it exposes how much of a fraud the show actually was. So they would go on to a set, right? And they had everything pre-planned. And when they would put together a season, the way she describes it is, okay, we would have these events that we were going to do. So big family events is what they would film. And then in between the filming of the events, they had to go and do their interviews, and then they had to do like their promotional stuff. And so they were working all of the time, usually 1 week on, 1 week off. And during that period, they really only saw each other when they were filming, because when they weren't filming, they had to do all of their other they had to take care of all their other responsibilities in life, and they had children to raise. And so the bulk of their relationships occurred on camera. And when they weren't on camera, they weren't together, weren't off camera for very long at any given time. And when Kody wasn't on camera, he really was only with Robyn. And Kody and Robyn really coordinated what it was they were going to say together on the show. And that also impacted how everyone else on the show responded. And she talks in great length about how once Robyn joins the family, Kody really finds this, person, and he deserts everyone. He spends all of his time with Robyn. He's never with the kids. He's really never at home. He will show up at 6 o'clock at night. He'll eat dinner, which is a dinner that he demands that she makes. It's not normal food that they would eat. The house has to be spick and span, perfectly clean. Everyone has to be on their best behavior and treat him like a king. And if they don't treat him well, and if they don't act right, and if the kids don't act right, he leaves because the house isn't perfect. And he can go somewhere where it is perfect. And he won't change who he is because it's not his responsibility. And so his quote is, "I move from pain to pleasure." So if it's painful where Christine is, he's going to go where it's pleasurable, where it's with Robyn. And he would often tell Christine, "I don't love you because you're not lovable. Be more lovable." He always would put little guard rails and goalposts that she would have to meet in order to gain his love. But then once she would get there, he would change it, or he would make her do something that she couldn't even achieve. And one aspect I will say is that there's a lot of conversations in the book about, how much Kody did change with Robyn. And she spoke about how much Robyn interfered in their marriage. But in all honesty, most of the criticism is directed towards Kody. She does recognize that Robyn manipulated him. She recognizes that Robyn would pit him against her, would form opinions for him and manipulate him into saying things, or she would twist things to get Kody upset with her. So she would run to Kody if something would happen, and then Kody would then go yell at her. She acknowledged that Kody and Robyn would often have conversations at home, and then the two of them would have these coordinated stories that would show up on camera that really contradicted what everyone else was saying, and that she really interfered in their marriage. She says Robyn would say that she could speak Kody as if the wives who had been with him for as long as 2 decades needed a translator. In reality, it often seemed as if he repeated on camera what he'd heard in a discussion they'd already had at home. Unlike the Brown family tradition of simply moving forward, she liked to think about everyone's perspective and to talk through conflicts, which made for great TV. She tried to help Kody see how his words or actions might affect the other wives. I think she wanted to make sure Kody treated everyone well, but that meant Kody talked about his other relationships with her. I hadn't agreed to that. I was often hurt by how much she knew, as well as irritated by how she influenced Kody's behavior toward me, even if it was in a good way. She wasn't my counselor. I wasn't married to Kody and Robyn, just Kody. And I'd known Kody for long enough to know when he parroted Robyn's words as reasons for his own behavior. She said that once they go public and once he's in this relationship with Robyn and Robyn's manipulating and really pitting him against the other women, but then on the show trying to appear like she's doing it altruistically, Kody also spends a lot of time in the comments, reading negative comments and getting really mad about what people view him as. And she says that he's a comment reader. And she says, in my mind, Kody's outlook seemed to become more fear-based, as if everyone were judging him, even as he seemed to enjoy the celebrity. It's possible that's why he started to worry about loyalty and which of his wives supported him and whether he was doing enough to control outcomes in his family as the patriarch. He started to use the word covenant, which wasn't something he did in the early days of our relationship, as well as agreement, as if we had all entered a contract with him and where we agreed his word was law. We wanted to present a positive image on the show, but we also had to be careful not to upset the balance, precarious as it was. If I complained about our marriage on the show, Kody spent less time with me and my kids. If we didn't do things his way, he'd punish us by withholding his attention. Vegas was all about that. If I raised a concern, he would say, well, we can choose to fight or we can choose not to, and I'll stay. Husbands don't go to the doghouse in polygamy. They go to the next wife in the chain. I stopped telling him when something bothered me. It was exhausting. I felt like we always had to be on. but in the background, everything felt hard. I never knew what we would dissect on the set. My face shows everything. She even discusses how she would use language because of that, because if she didn't do things that Kody and Robyn wanted, then she would lose the things that she needed. She would say things like, we're just doing the best we can and raising our kids in a home full of love. I would say before that point, our relationship with Kody had been a bit more push and pull. Kody had always withdrawn his attention when he was angry with one of us, but when Janelle left town in a huff and I headed off to spend time with my parents, he'd pull us back in. A big date, a lovely gift, a visit, love bombing. And what another thing you realize about this book is that a lot of their interactions are only on camera. And so her only interactions with Robyn are when they're filming. And then she would have conversations with Robyn on camera, and then Robyn would go run back to Kody and tattle on Christine, and then Kody would come back to her and yell at her and tell her that she was being abusive to Robyn. So she stopped telling Robyn things, stopped confiding in Robyn, because everything she would tell Robyn would twist and use it against her to get Kody mad at Christine. And she doesn't necessarily blame Robyn for the family breaking down. She says that bringing Robyn in just exposed what was wrong in the family. And even though Robyn did have very maladaptive behaviors that definitely impacted everyone, and she was very manipulative, and definitely they stole money, that she squarely puts the blame where it belongs, and it's on Kody. What you also learn in this book is that Kody is trying to navigate and manage his reputation. And so he's trying to gain control over the people in his family, like his wives and his children, to be loyal so that people out in the world stop talking crap about him and stop making him look bad. For instance, on the show, he refused to go to Isabel's surgery because he said he couldn't be away from his family for that long, for 3 weeks. And then she writes about how that was very confusing to Isabel, and that Isabel was like, I thought I was his family. And then when they're in New Jersey for the surgery, Kody didn't know that Hunter and Aspen traveled to New Jersey to be with Isabel for the surgery. And so then it made him look bad. And so then he got mad at his kids because they traveled and that to the surgery that he was supposed to be at, but he refused to go to. So a lot of it was image management for Kody, trying to control what people were saying about him, a lot like what Jim Bob Duggar was doing to his family. And when you start to learn about how arguments that they would have would just get recreated, so it proves to you how fake the show is as well. So the conversations really take place on camera, but Kody and her conversation, the breakup conversation, that was a recorded conversation that was done specifically for the show, but they had already had the conversation multiple times. Kody saw the boxes in her house and in the garage and knew that the garage boxes were there and that he had been moved out, but then later pretended to her face that he didn't know that he had been moved out. And she didn't know that he had seen the boxes until she saw the show. Another example of the fakery is when she called everyone over to tell them she was leaving Kody when they sat outside. She called Mary before. So she had already told Janelle that she was leaving. So Janelle already knew. She had made that conversation known with Janelle because she didn't want to blindside the two women that had been there the entire time. And then she also called Mary. And she said that Mary's reaction on camera was ridiculous because Mary knew that she was leaving. She had called Mary. She had said to Mary, I want to tell you this before, so you're not just hearing it on camera, so it doesn't, come as a surprise. I feel like you deserve to know this from me. And then she says on the camera, she's looking shocked and annoyed and acting like it's brand new information. And then she says that Mary looks angry, like as though it's just brand new information. And Mary says on camera, this was all new and she had never heard it before. So she was just taking it in. And so she was saying like, Mary already knew this. And so this reaction that Mary had was completely inauthentic. And she should have it was another reminder to her is how much people would be acting while they were filming. And when she got tired of playing the game and having to monitor what she said, that's when everything changed for her. One other key aspect here, and then we're going to talk about other parts of the book in another video, that she reveals that they don't talk about on the show is the money aspect of the show and how little of money she was getting in comparison to Robyn and Kody. But she also says very succinctly that, and drives this home, that Kody strung them along, Mary, Christine, and Janelle, because he was greedy and because he had a show to make. And so he was doing everything that he could to woo them back in so he could keep filming the show. And that his greed to film the show led to him being more and more abusive to them because he didn't want to lose his money pot of gold that he had gotten with the show. He didn't want to lose the show and the fame. And that deceiving them and moving them to Flagstaff was because Dayton wanted to go to school there. But also, he manipulated each one of them to give money to him, like Mary. He accuses him in the book, he accuses Robyn and Kody of manipulating Mary into thinking that they had a chance of getting back together with her so that they could steal the money from her proceeds of her sale of her home in Las Vegas. And he does the same thing when it comes to Janelle, and that he was constantly trying to like woo her back because he wanted her money. And it was all greed, and that she wasn't going to be a part of this narrative anymore of I'm going to pretend so you can profit off of this, so you can make money at the expense of everyone else. And that Robyn was okay with it because she was benefiting from it, which she said is one of the biggest betrayals of all of it, is that Robyn truly never lived polygamy because what she and Kody were doing was stringing them along so they could live a lavish life and making them think like there would be a chance of reconciliation and he would do just enough to woo them for a minute, but then it would never get back. And COVID just unraveled it all for all of it. And that's when they finally just couldn't do it anymore. So the show was a complete fraud in so many ways, but yet at the same time, what you do see are aspects where there was truth, but when there was truth, they were getting penalized off camera. And a lot of what they were saying that they weren't like the FLDSs, they were, and they were just not talking about it. So tell me what your thoughts are on all of this in the comments below. The book is released on September 2nd. You can actually find it at Barnes & Noble on the shelves right now in stores. You can't get it online, but if you go to a store, the books are there. The book is Sister Wife, A Memoir of Faith, Family, and Finding Freedom. Let me know what your thoughts are. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.